Hello and welcome to Erudite DM. And this is our first live stream, so this is exciting. Yeah, first for the channel, I should say. My special guest, who I'm very honored to have tonight, and happy to call a friend. Actually, somebody who helped me get back into gaming in the past 2 years is Flint Fireful.
Good evening. What is happening? What is going on in the YouTube world?
Turning off my other speaker. Lesson learned in the first live stream, so I'm not listening to myself with a 3-second delay. That's good.
There we go.
All right, so we already hit the first hurdle, Paul.
Ooh, hey, we got that out of the way, man. That's the deal. That's what you got to do. Do that. Stub your toe in the first, and then move on.
Yeah, so we are going to talk about all the exciting things Paul's been doing. He jumped out last year, right? Is when you started this content creation process.
That's September, I think. September, I think, is when I started.
Wow, and I know you've been uber busy since then. But a mutual friend of ours is Joe the lawyer, and Joe started this thing where he's doing long Seth Rogen like almost podcast 4-hour marathons with his guests to get through those, so he can get lots of good questions in. So I'm going to follow the same thing tonight, Paul. And my first question is, tell us about your birth. What do you remember from that day?
Yes. Well, as I remember, and by the way, after the first hour, you will be interviewing an empty chair.
Yeah, because we're not going to
be on the stream. I won't be here, but you can interview my chair, and I'm sure to be happy to answer any questions about my birth.
Well, I really do appreciate you being here, and we've got some good stuff to go through. Some of you who tune in tonight and listen will probably know Paul, and you might know me as well for joining the Monday night group recently with Tim Shorts and Vance and Ken and some others playing Shadow Dark last year and into the first part of this year, and other good games. So, Paul, tell us a little about yourself, a little background for the folks. I mean, we assume everybody knows us in our small little world here, our little niche corner of YouTube, but introduce yourself, please, and tell them your background and skill sets.
Yeah, I assume nothing, by the way. I assume nobody knows me. I'm just like, a complete nobody in the world of the YouTube verse. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, as far as background goes, and this may be, I don't know if this is an exclusive or not. I don't think anybody's ever asked me what my background is, what I do for work or anything like that. But I've been a pastor for the past 35 years, specifically working with young people. And so I'm married. I got 3 kids. Let's see, been married 34 years. Let's see, going to turn 57 in about 2 weeks. Let's see, what else can I tell you? What my social security number?
What about your professional gaming experience here? Not that your family history and all that isn't fascinating, but okay, we get the idea. You're a family man.
Yes.
You come from an ecclesiastical career.
Yes.
And then what about your gaming? How'd you get into gaming? And tell them, maybe, I know you do start playing, right?
Yeah, I do. And yeah, I do start playing as one platform that I use for those type of things. But I've been playing games since I was 13 with the red box. Started with the red box, and then after that, I played for several years, and then took a very long break. Just took a break, and then about 20 years ago, somebody was in a store. I was in a game store, in a comic book shop, I think, and somebody was saying, I really want to play this. And I had not played, I had not DM'd really that much up until that point. I did a few things, but this lady said, boy, I really wish we could play this. Well, hey, how about if I run the game for you? And of course, I'm one to just jump in and I'll figure it out later. I'll just commit now and then we'll work it out. Right. So, and then after that, I probably was their DM. I did Pathfinder First Edition, which got me back into gaming actually after that long hiatus. And then I, was their DM for like 2 years, did a 2-year campaign of Pathfinder. And then after that, I became about 5 years ago. It's always pretentious to say the word, that you're a professional at it, right? Some people want to use that in some sort of cocky, weird notion, but a professional just means say, look, yeah, I get paid occasionally, to run games for people that want me to run games for them. Right? I've done birthday parties, I've done just, people who want a lot of learn to plays. I've done a lot of learn to plays with people at my local game shop, and things like that. So, yeah. So that's just one side gig of amongst other side gigs. But yeah, so yeah, doing that. And also I'm also what is called a certified therapeutic game master. It's a real word. It's a real thing. If you go to geektherapeutics.com, they offer a whole course on that. And I wound up taking the course because I wanted to work with social workers. I wanted to work with mental health professionals. I wanted to work with therapists, and have done some of that to where, you work with people and you act as an intervention for various things, to skill build, to learn, leadership, to work through, various things that the client wants to work through. And so, I keep that in mind as well, because it's kind of in my wheelhouse. So yeah, that's kind of my gaming background in a nutshell.
That therapy education part of it, that was a thing back even in the early 80s, wasn't it? I remember for some reason, I remember a teacher, I might have been in junior high, and there was like an English teacher who was playing D&D with her class. And I was not junior high. Come to think of it, that would have been like 78 or 79. So even before then.
Yeah.
But it seems like there was always some connection to young people, that this is some kind of tool to, I don't know, teach communication skills or patience or how to skin a kobold or something.
Right. And today it's used a lot in what's called SEL, which is social emotional learning, where you deal with things like how to de-escalate a confrontation, or how to deal with conflict, and so that's very much in the education space, which I have done for schools as well.
I've done of how de-escalate a situation. I'm not sure I'd turn to D&D or a Shadow.
Maybe not, but that's when you have to, if that's what they're asking for, then you have to design it that way, to where you're picking up on things of, it becomes a teaching, it's a game, but then there's kind of somebody that I know did this. If you answered questions, they did it this way in their school scenario. They played the scenario, they did whatever. And then if they were willing to answer questions, they got experience point based on answering the questions. So it offered the teenagers playing an opportunity to level their character, to do something, to do that, which I thought that was quite clever, to get them involved in the conversation about the meta of what's really happening and what you're trying to do, to facilitate that.
Well, I'm sure this is the same with the kids you minister to, with junior high school kids, just getting them out of their shell enough to speak in front of a group of other peers. That's a big thing for a young person. The first couple of times they do that.
Absolutely.
I remember I was raised Catholic, and being at a Catholic youth retreat, which there's kind of this whole restraining order. I'm not allowed anywhere around a Catholic church anymore, but that's another story. That's another story. But yeah, I remember what a big deal that was, to get up and open up about things in front of other teenagers. So I imagine that's a big part of the game too, because they want you to participate. They want you to take your turn and tell them what your character does and all that. So.
Well, you're teaching patience. There's a lot of lessons that are going in there. Of course, you don't go into it telling them, now we're about to have a learning exercise, kids.
Yeah.
You are telling them, hey, we're playing a game. And by the way, the after effect is maybe we learned something. Maybe there was something, like I will do a debrief after games and say, hey, who gets the MVP award? Who's the MVP of this game? And then tell me why. Why are they the MVP? And so then they kind of discuss, and we create questions around that where they're kind of affirming each other, right? They find a way to say, look, this is collaborative, and it's a way to build, bonds and things like that. When you talk about back in the 80s, and why I think gaming is an important in my canon, in my head, when my dad passed away when I was about 8 years old, and I was probably in fourth grade, I want to say, somewhere around there. Maybe I was 9, but I can remember the psychologist, therapist, whoever they brought in for me, would bring in dominoes, and brought dominoes in, and I would sit there and we would play dominoes. We'd have something that we would doodle with while he asked me questions, right? And he would ask me, about how I'm feeling and things like that. And the game was a diffuser in a way. It was, in other words, it made me more relaxed to know that there was a game or something that I was messing with that allowed me to more freedom to talk. And so that always stuck with me, that gaming is that kind of thing, that when you're playing a game, it allows you to relax a little bit. You're not so tensed up, or you're not, you're enjoying yourself. And so as a teaching tool, as a learning tool, and those type of things, that's where I find that that's the sweet spot for the gaming, at least working with young people. And I think that works for adults as well.
So but you were always a DM in the early days. So you were always kind of engineering, running the game.
No, I was a player. I was a player
Right.
up until 20 years ago. I was really a player. I had run one game as a kid, as a teenager. I was probably 16 years old. Maybe I ran a game. It was terrible. It was awful. And in fact, now that I think about it, that was a dual game. That was a 1-to-1 game. I was at a friend's house spending the night, and I was teaching him the game.
Yeah.
I taught him horribly wrong. Everything was terrible. I can remember that. It wasn't great. But yeah. And so up until that point, I was a player. And up until 20 years ago is when I really started DMing, like on the regular, like every week we were doing, or every 2 weeks, whatever we did, we ran a game, which forced me to get better at it. And it forced me to be on a schedule, and it forced me to be, prepared, and all those things. And so, I did, and it was fun. And I still have fun. That's why I guess I'm still doing it today.
Yeah. And it seems like at a certain age or a certain point in the journey of playing these role-playing games, for some of us, yourself included, I'm guessing a light goes off at some point. You're like, I've been writing all this stuff for years. Some of it's pretty good. Maybe somebody else would like to see what I've been working on, or my ideas might be good enough that other people could use them at their table. Maybe they'd learn something, get some value for this,
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us back around to, I guess, the creation of your zine, Crit Happens.
Mm-hmm.
Were you always a zine guy? I remember Dragon Magazine, and what was the other one? Dungeon or whatever. Yeah, there you go. Back in the early days, but I don't remember a lot of printed zines and I quit playing like in the late 80s. But and then when I came back to it, there were all these zines all over. And I'm like, where was all this stuff? I would have loved it back in the old days.
Absolutely. This is my zine experience, really. This is it. This is me reading, waiting to get the new issue in, or at least buying it and finding it on the shelf somewhere. And I'd get so stoked, when I'd go into whatever place it was, that I'd go in and I'd see that magazine on the shelf, and I go, I gotta, get it, because there wasn't a lot of, at least around me, I went to the local bookstore. The local bookstore carried D&D stuff, and it was a local, family owned and operated type place. So when I would go in there, they carried miniatures and the books, and they'd have the magazine on sale and that kind of stuff. So, for me, that's all I knew. I didn't know. And we were pretty insular as a group, until we went to a con or something like that. But we were insular in the sense that we didn't understand the scope of the hobby, right? There's people who understood from the get-go that this thing is huge. And us, we thought it was really small. It's like, we're just a bunch of guys playing. We don't understand how.
There's one shop at the mall, and we go to it every other week. And if we have any money, we'll buy something. Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Yeah, and so absolutely.
You mentioned something about the zines and how the art dragged in. I think some of us last night, the other group, but it really is the art. In so much. In 10 issues now. And I'm working on a zine, and I know about mine. Do you worry about the art, the quality? I mean, sometimes I find myself just going, God, I wish I knew. I need to make more contacts with artists to help sell it, because a lot of it is, I think people see that and they want to own it, and they generate ideas from that cover. I mean, who didn't play, first edition AD&D in 1980, 81, 82, and knock them up with some ideas based on that player's handbook cover of the big orange statue, And all of us, we got ideas wherever we could, even in the artwork of those things. Is art something that you're currently working on or developing, or do you like the low key? I know you're using Canva. I'm using Canva in developing. I can find things and I can buy some stuff on drive-through. What do you think about artwork?
Well, I like artwork. I mean, I have, in fact, I will, breaking news, I will have original art in the next zine, in June's issue, which will be called Dragons of Kriesh. I have 3 dragons that I'll be making, which I will remain secret for the moment, but at least three that will be there. and I'm still formulating what that looks like. How do dragons act in the land of Kriash? What do they do? Where are their territories? What are they messing with, right? So so artwork, I think, here's the issue though. I think artwork holds so many people back from creating because they think they have to be original. They think they have to get custom art. They think they
Yeah.
have to do those things. And I don't think so. I think there's plenty of people in the early days who drew it themselves and it didn't look fantastic, probably, right? It didn't look like, Da Vinci. And I think we get it in our heads. And if I don't do anything, my hope is that in putting out the zine, another thing is like, look, don't get hung up on perfect, right? Done is better than perfect. So I can only take it. I'll put in there into the zine the best of what I think I can put in there without it being like when you print it off. Like, I don't want to put a gajillion pieces of artwork in there that when you print it off, you have used now an entire inkwell for you to print one zine. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it pretty even.
Yeah, hell, I wasn't even going to make a print ready version until Tim or somebody pointed out and go, "Hey, dude, you need to." By the way, those reverse pages are real nice, but I'm like, "Oh, that's true." I was just thinking of putting out a PDF, but if somebody wants to print them, that's a problem. So just learning all this stuff. I apologize. Somebody in the comments had a question for you, but do you have a tip for something?
Yeah, it was a tip. It was a tip for how do you get started in doing zines. But do you have that question later for us? Yes. Or do you want me to answer that now?
Hey, Paul, what advice, tips? This is from Mark's genre mixer. Hey, Mark, can you give to someone that wants to start out making content such as Mark, hold that thought and don't go away. Now you have to stay here because we're.
Yeah, and Tim, Gothridge Manor there says too, there's a lot of artists out there, fantastic to work with. Never be afraid to approach them. I've made some fantastic connections. Once you have relationship with people and you want to ask them, say, hey, what, how can we work together? How can we, do something? And I think that's also in our heads that people are unapproachable. When in reality,
when we're literally on a platform where we can chat with somebody about whatever game we're playing in Brazil or in Poland or whatever. I mean, no one is unapproachable, right? I mean, they can be rude and you may not hit it off, but shame on you if you don't take that step.
Yeah. Right. As my mother used to say, all they can tell you is no.
All right. Well, we're talking, I want to steer it over towards this particular issue. I don't want people bailing out. They're not even talking about creation and so forth. And this is really fun stuff.
Hey, we're giving them value here,
and everybody tonight will get a free Erudite DM bumper sticker as soon as I get those made. We'll send you.
That's right.
In the hemp tattoo. Let's see. So, question. Let's start at the beginning of this whole idea of the hexing and the horror crawl, and maybe take us through the origin or the genesis of this idea and how it leads up to issue number 10, if you would.
Yeah, and that comes from listen, when I started let's put it this way, there were a couple of zines. It started in issue number 4 because up until that point I was like, okay, 1, 2, and 3. I think I did. The first one was on dragons. Yeah. It was like a little zine where I had articles in there about DMing and things like that. The second one, I think, was about pirates, because who doesn't like pirates? And then I think in there might have been I think I made my first monster in there. And then the third one was about schools, why you should put more schools or places of education in your, in your world. And by 4, I was like, and I'll be honest with you, I think there was a lot of talk, even last year. I kept just seeing videos on hex crawls, and I'm like, listen, hex crawls, like you said, can be like, it can cause your eyes to glaze over because you're looking at a map of empty hexes. You have no idea what you're going to do with this. Zero. And so I said in issue number 4, I'm going to make something for me. I wasn't trying to teach anybody how to do a hex crawl. I said, for me, I'm going to do this because I want a simple tool and a resource for a one shot. I'm not even talking about how to build a world. I'm not even talking about how to build anything except, listen, if you want to do a short one shot, 1 or 2, 3 session type of thing, or you want to, build out and using the hex flower, which is kind of the key to all of it, is in the fact that I just wanted to have somebody to have a night of gaming in a hex crawl that doesn't involve an entire map of stuff that's going to just get confusing. But listen, you can navigate a hex flower.
Mhm.
And you rolled up. You said, "Hey, I'm going to roll." If you wanted to do random rolls, you could. You could pick something and say, "Okay, there's a cave over there." You put 5. If you want to put 5 locations, you can. Or how was hex? Let's see. Hex flower has 3, 6, 7. I think 7 things with 1 in the middle and 6 around it. So if you wanted to put 3 locations, and and then what are your monsters, or what things are going to be crawling around in that place? Well, you could roll for that, or you could pick, and just have something really simple. Is really what I was trying to do for myself, is create something simple for a night of gaming that could be a sandbox, more than a hex crawl, really. I mean, it's just a sandbox, right? Where you say, look, here's a sandbox. Where do you want to go? I have something over here. There's a empty cave over here. There's a tower over here that has some things maybe. And then there's there's rumors of an encampment of some kind of goblins or something, and they're doing shady stuff over there. So even if you just did it that way, that was the plan all along. I was doing one zine and said, okay, I'll do that, and hopefully
it seems like when you start writing anything, right, you're just kind of getting familiar with a style and trying to develop a rhythm to the writing. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember your first few issues, and then suddenly it's like a spark went off and you took off on a theme, and the idea had gone off, the light bulb had gone off. You're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to shape it. But I love that creative process. That's the fun thing. And I'm guessing you enjoyed every bit of that too. And this was really the first time, other than writing your own notes for playing with your friends, right? This was the first time you ever tried professionally writing something for gaming.
100%. I have zero. I mean, look, I've failed a lot in my life. So to me, to try things is okay. I think you have to be friends with failure and with chaos and with those things, that if you're going to try to put out something into the world, you just got to say, look, I'm going to put it out there and see what happens. And for me, in the creative process was everything. It's like, I've never done a zine before. I have no history of zinage. I don't have any, I wasn't born in the zine dungeon, and I said, you know what? I've read a few zines. I've done a few things. So I'm like, I'm like, in my brain, how hard could it be? Right. So I'm like, I'll give it a shot, see what we can do. And I wound up doing that. And thankfully however many is it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 issues later, as far as the hex crawl goes, 10 overall. I'm okay. I'm happy with it. I mean, is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it's out there.
Yeah. I've noticed that too with writing these zines. It is how am I ever going to put this out to sell to people when I feel like every week I need to change something and keep messing with it and keep messing. I know that from my own professional field in advertising, because I've written ads for years and done copywriting, and it's like the work and that ideation, that creation process never stops for a creator.
Sure.
It keeps going on. Just because the client bought it and went forward with the ad doesn't mean it's done to me. I'm still thinking about it in most cases.
And I'm updating. By the way, mine is it's a living document. So if I go back to issue number 3 and I find a mistake, I'm fixing it.
Yeah,
because that's just my mentality. And if somebody notices something and says, "Hey, Paul, I noticed there's a typo on page 6," I got you. I fix it. Send them a new PDF. That's just how I feel about it. So it's like, look, it's there. It doesn't cost me anything but a little bit of time. In fact, this whole process, other than even where I sell the zines, cost me nothing. Canva is the only thing that it cost me, whatever, $10 a month, and then time. Otherwise, it's not a super expensive thing to do, unless you're like, now it's expensive because I bought artwork. So for the next one, but that's going to be probably unless the zine takes off and I'm selling like 1,000 zines a month or something, that'll be maybe the rarity, unless I can squeeze 1 or 2 art pieces of art per original things going forward.
I'm going to go ahead and share this as well. This is the let's see if I can do this right. Copy link address. Let's see. This is the link for the Hex Crawl of Horror, which is Paul's bundle on Drive-Thru, Paul, or on Gumroad.
I don't know. I gave you Drive-Thru. Yeah, I gave you.
It's Drive-Thru. Yeah, I think I see it now. So, would you suggest if someone wants to jump into this? And guys, Paul is not asking a lot of money from what I saw in Drive-Thru. You know, and I had a complimentary set to read through, so thank you, Paul, for that. But I mean, these are really, really very inexpensive. So if you're gaming and looking for ideas, my big question is, should they start? And I think I know, because you want them to obviously to buy all of them and play all of them.
Yeah.
Could somebody just go in though at issue number 10 and do that if they wanted to, or would it be wiser to start back at 3, 4, 5 somewhere?
Yeah. No, I think you could buy. Listen, every zine can stand on its own. So if you bought, you know, Land of the Gods, if you bought that, there's enough in there. You wouldn't need to know anything else other than, because and I heard somebody say this one time, if you treat every RPG book as a resource and not a finite piece of literature that has closed ends, like there's the beginning of the thing, the end of the thing, and that's all that's in there is that, then it's just a resource for you. You say, okay, well, if you read 10 and go, well, I'd like the backstory on this, where do I go to get more of that? Well, then, you know, there's options. If you buy the PDF, there's links in there to get to other zines, because at the back of the book, it shows you the other zines that are in there. And so, yeah, I think you can jump in anywhere depending on what you want to do for your game. And it's built that way. It's built to be, to work for various systems, and it's, use it as you please.
Well, in the background intro for issue number 10, Land of the Gods, you talk about the hexing and the history of this, and something happened. Tell us the lore. Just set up the premise for us. The what is this witchy poo stuff, or is it, what is it?
Yeah, the whole thing revolves. Well, I say the whole thing. It starts with, because the first issue after I did that, I said, well, if I did a hex crawl of horror, well, what is that going to look like? And then I thought of witches and hexes for no reason other than I thought, okay, these people are doing some hexes, and they were, and the whole thing, I give a basic little thing. They were good. They were like druidic. They were like, they were just chilling. And then a storm happens. And when the storm happens, it tears apart it tears apart their grove. And anyway, they're having, they're mad at the gods now. And so they're trying to get their revenge after pleading and all they're trying to get their revenge against the gods. So they wind up finding out about these keystones, where if you go back, which is what, the Land of the Gods talks about a little bit, as well as the cults. It talks about the fact that these, that in what I will say in the heavenlies, or in the in that sphere of the pantheon, there were demigods that were raising up and having war with with the gods, and part of that is what potentially caused the grove, the storm, and now the witches are trying to get revenge on them. So once the demigods are put into these keystones, they're put all over Kriesh, separated. They find one, they tap its power to fuel their hex, and then bad things happen. That's when somebody
inserted this. I'm sorry. If somebody inserted this into their world setting, then they literally could have these different keystones around their own, the map they're using now, that have been kind of hiding there all along. And maybe this one area is the hex map you're showing here.
Right. And this area, the Land of the Gods, that all I'm working on right now is the southeast region. There's a southeast region to the map, and
that might be our signal there. Do you want to share screen maybe and open that up?
I will. Sure.
That might be better than looking at our mugs the whole time. So
absolutely. Let me go ahead and share that. So here's a map, and I have several different kinds of maps here, but this one is just the plain map. And like I said, this is a 220 square mile type of area. You can see it's got different landmarks, things like that. And so these keystones that held these demigods, which had rebelled, are planted. There's one here, but there's the rest of them are all over the land around here. They're, all over the other rest of the map, which will then I'll build out. This one here, the Witches of the Blackened Earth, this location right here, well, that's where one of the keystones are, and because they used it there, there's it released a what do I want to say, not a creature per se, an entity called Schism. And Schism is this kind of really nasty spirit-like creature. And so in my issue 4, when I talk about that, one of the elements that you could roll up and say, well, what creatures are here? One of those is spirits that they're coming over. Like I think of Ghostbusters, right? When he says, shut down the thing, and all the ghosts kind of pop out of the building. That's kind of what happens here with the spirits. So the spirits all come out, and now there's the I want to say the leader, not the leader, but at least one of them called Schism is now residing here, which is a threat to Guardian Grove and is threat to kind of this area. They kind of hold the seat of power, if you will, amongst all the baddies. So yeah, but that's the general map there. Like I said, and there's only one in this particular area in the southeast region that we know of. Only one. There's only one, because the way in the canon of my head, which is so funny that I have to go back now and I have to read my own zines to see what I wrote, because I got to keep the story straight. Is that the gods had said, once we have captured these demigods, we need to spread them out so that they're not in one place. So we got to spread them out all over the place of Kriesh, the continent of Kriesh, and which then, when this happens and all these keystones started to open, now you have pockets of horrors. You have that's kind of where the horror part comes in, where now you have an entity in the land that is running amok and causing chaos. So for this area, it's going to be Schism. Schism is going to be the problem for this particular area and all of its kind of buddies that are out there.
I love the Guardian Grove and the way that's the one that's like a tower, like a stone tower with the obelisks stacked around.
Yes.
So
yes. I saw this, and really what this is actually the way it's built. It's actually, if you look at the inner wall here, that's the inner wall. There are two outer, and what these are basically like obelisks. Like if I took a giant stone piece of concrete, square piece of concrete, and stuck it in the ground, like almost like Stonehenge in some way, basically, that if anything tries to attack here, it's going to have to maneuver. Like it's either going to have to come through two things of layers of concrete before you ever get to the wall. So they've built it to the place where if you're on foot, you're going to have to maneuver around, or if you're going to have to go through two layers of things if you're using a catapult or whatever you may be doing to get through to the actual wall. So you're going to there's like a little warning system there that allows the people of Guardian Grove to stay protected, because they understand the threat of what is happening in their area.
Yeah, the Garden Grove kind of coincided with something I saw on YouTube. I'll put the name in here and people can look it up if they want. But do you know what a Niragi is?
No,
in the Mediterranean, on the island of Sardinia, which is part of Italy, there are all these towers, and I think they're circular, maybe square. I think they're circular though, and they're all ruins now. Some of them are still standing with nothing inside them, but they weren't built when castles were built in the Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the Roman era, when they started building things, they were built like 1,000 years before that, and they're like, why the hell are we only finding these on the island of Sardinia? They've known about them for a long time. But if you're looking for some ideas and for your game, and you want to look at some ruins and maps and stuff and a little lore, go check out Sardinian Niragis, guys, for structures or Google images, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
really pretty freaky looking. That's what I kind of thought where you were going, but then I heard you on another video explaining that no, these are like concentric obelisks in a row of almost what I see in my mind is almost like jagged teeth or something.
Right. And they're staggered, like they're not lined up. Like the first level is one thing, and behind it's staggered. So you're not getting a direct, it's not dominoes where if you hit one, it's going to hit one right behind it. It's going to hit it differently. At least in my mind, that's how it's constructed.
So I hope this isn't too big a question, and I hope you can explain it. I'm sure you can better than I would, but would you define this system? I don't want to say system, but your hex crawl, your horror hex crawl, as a West Marches style or a sandbox style? And tell me the difference, because I still get them mixed up. And
yeah, I would say definitely a sandbox. I've never played a West Marches, and I barely understand it, so I would not. Could you use it? Maybe if I guess. I mean, you can put it anywhere, I guess, but it's more sandbox. And on a sandbox, I know that in a sandbox, this is a sandbox to my mind is not super defined as much as it is that I've defined it. So even if you just did this, even if you erased all the city names, if you erased, the various things, if you said over here is a waterfall in this hex, and over here is a grove, and over here there's a big city with these strange walls around it, and you put these ruins here, that would be sufficient, I would think, for a sandbox thing without any. You may know this map, but your players wouldn't. You'd say, "Oh, I know what this is," but you're going to tell your players, like, "Hey, there's a grove, there's a big city, there's rumors that over here there's some sort of academy of warriors and possible healing. There's Lake Weave. Maybe there's something in there. There's rumors about the river that lizard men might be hanging around there in those parts." So if you stripped it down to just and that's what I do in issue 4 of the zine, is I'm just rolling like a location, like 3 locations and three things that are roaming around the place that you could do.
Rule of thirds, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's 3 things of those. 3 of those, you can go more, you can go less, depending on what the area of your hex is, your hexes are. But if you strip this down to, just like I said, 6 things, 3 locations and 3 possible threats that are going on, you could do that.
Well, and the other beautiful thing you did that I told you in my notes leading up to this, you had made the comment, or maybe it was on one of your other videos, because I watch your stuff as well. And you guys should all follow Paul if you don't already.
Yes, you should.
Flint Fireforge, like him, subscribe, and do all those good things, because
all the things.
His content is really good, and he plays some really fun squirrely games too that are not fantasy sword slashing and are really fun.
That's right.
But I was going to say one thing you had mentioned before, Paul, was the idea that the map this isn't a final finished piece. Somebody could use in their weekly game, and there's enough room here where they could plunk in villages or hamlets or isolated points of interest, or a rift or a dark forest. There's plenty of room for them to insert their own flavors into the map and therefore into the adventure.
Yeah, we think, listen, no map is ever finished. And I think that's kind of a mental blockage in a lot of ways. And when we look at a map, we go, well, that's all that can exist because that's what's on the page. And what I've tried to do, at least in the Land of the Gods and maybe some others, I put things in there that are not on the map. There's things there are threads that you can pull on, that tell you, like, example, if in the eras, there's a group of what's called the Guild of the Silver Quill, I want to call it. I think it is.
Yeah.
And basically they're historians. Like, if you think of them, and they have like a team of archaeologists, explorers, and those type of things, who are researching, the past. And so they could discover a whole new era somewhere, right? So if you build in those, and there's no details of that yet, but you could totally pull that out and say, oh, we're going to go visit the Guild of the Silver Quill because they have historical knowledge, and we're going to go look for something. You don't have to wait till it's fleshed out in some book. If you pick up on that little thread, take it and just run with it in your own game and put it somewhere.
Yeah, I know you created also a timeline in here for the 5 ages, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a long term. So if you wanted some lore of your own, you create something in a different age or
Hmm.
uncover something from another place in another time. I don't remember, and maybe I'm just not remembering it right now without flipping through the PDF, but I don't remember there being a particular religious or religions actually being practiced supporting these gods or these demigods and so forth. Did you have that in here, or is that something that somebody could develop and play with and throw into the mix?
Absolutely. I mean, and having these ages and those things. I mean, there's nothing new about that. I mean, Dragonlance, one of my favorite settings of all time, I think has, I want to say, 5 ages, maybe more. But yeah, you could take like in the, if you decided to play in a certain era of Kriesh, it could be the early days, like the dawning, right? Right when things are getting going, and you're watching, you're one of the first created beings, let's say. And then, things start to happen from there. Or you could say, listen, well, we're going to go in the age of the time of the weavers, which is what I call magic users in Kriesh. They're weavers. They're taking the ley lines, right?
Yeah,
These threads, and weaving them together to create their magic. And you say, we're going to be in an age of magic, and say, okay, well, what does that look like? And then you have the shadowed age, and this is where, if you're following along, you go, okay, well, we're in the shadow. How'd that happen? Well, Weave, which is one of the OG Guardians, well, they didn't like the way things were going. They wanted to upset the apple cart. They wanted to, they just weren't happy with the way things are. And they said, they started a little whisper campaign amongst the demigods. This entity was trying to get all the demigods to come to their side and say, well, we're going to go to war, which is what they did. And so all these demigods that we have, basically, whether it's the general of the undead, or whether it's Azrael of hell. And so basically you have these various leaders, these demigods, which have their minions among them, that were then entrapped into the keystones, right? So you could play in the Shadowed Age, where now you're just in, like, it is like absolute chaos. It is war going on against all of these things. So if you want to play in that era, absolutely. Are things still horrible today? Yeah, but they're more horrible. They're more horrible back then, for sure.
I like that idea though, of being able to play like Sword and Sandals or something in an earlier age, if that's your flavor of game, and then a different week you could play something more advanced, and armors come along, and maybe you're not dealing with bronze anymore. Now you have iron technology. So,
Yeah,
hey, Stubby.
absolutely. In the fourth era is what I call the Age of Crowns. It's called various things. I have some other names for it, other places, but I call it the Age of Crowns. Where there's a high ward, basically. They're not called kings or queens. Establish order again. We have to rebuild what has been destroyed. And that's a whole process of saying, okay, who's now leading, and there's a system. Like example, and there's not a lot. There's some, but it's not a divisive world. Like elves and dwarves get along to some degree. There's no racial bias in that way, because they had to fight together. It's either fight or die. It's either we're gonna figure this thing out, or we're all gonna die. So we better figure out how to work together. And so when you have leadership, well, there's a system for that I'm working on, for at least for the Guardian Grove, where every so often it's somebody else's turn. There'll be an elf, there'll be a dwarf, there'll be a human, and elves and dwarves obviously live longer than humans. So I did a thing where, well, if elves and dwarves are going to rule, then the system was put in that more humans would be put on the council to balance any type of big swings of actions, those things. So there's a balancing system within the government, kind of a thing. And so if you want to play in the Age of Crowns, you can do that now, where that's all being established. And then in the last era, which is the current era, I call it the current era, which is post Hexa, which is now we're living in a post Hexa age. After this thing has happened, these demigods have returned. They have been released from the keystones. They're in their areas, but the world is in a better because they thought this could happen again, they are better prepared in that regard to handle the situation. They're not at the Kriesh is not at necessarily a disadvantage because they've kind of prepared for the moment. So yeah, you could choose an era to play in, and once again, there could be a hidden era out there that we don't know about. It's
it is very high level, right? This isn't like I know the thing I did on my first zine was very kind of tactical at a certain level and right 6 miles to a hex, and you're playing that little world, that little setting. You did something very different here over these series of issues and creating a bigger, wider metaphor for whatever you want to plug your game into.
Sure, options
and pick and choose, which is great. It lets people kind of design their game for whatever their group's tastes are. And I do love the evocative language. So if you guys buy this thing for a couple of bucks, you'll see he has each of these 5 eras, and there's this really highly, I don't want to say poetic, but kind of very evocative, well done, Paul, language that kind of gets you into the spirit of the thing.
Yeah, very sage-like. In fact, this issue marks a design turn in a way, because I still have the little hexes because that's kind of the thing on the page, kind of the background. But doing this at the beginning of this, where you kind of have these kind of tomes, these are, as it says in the beginning, it says from the pamphlet, a short history of Kriesh excerpted from the Chronicles of Kriesh. So you know that there's a history, because now they have a whole set of books, however many that is, which chronicles, to the best of their knowledge, each era of what has come before. And it's probably the Silver Quill. The Silver Quill folks is the people who hold on to that.
So I'll ask you a leading question so we can get to this topic, because I know it's what you talk about. What inspiration did you use? Any things you read maybe to help work? Any published pieces by any people, YouTubers that we know that were very instrumental in helping you shape the fantasy sandbox intent? Why, yes.
I don't know if I've had, I think it's probably an amalgamation of things. It's probably just a history of reading a lot of fantasy books. It's probably, Dragonlance is probably in there somewhere. I can't point to anything in particular other than the fact that, working through part of the deal is because I work through, Rob Connolly's How to Make a Fantasy Sandbox. It challenged me to think about things that I would not normally think about. And there are 33 steps in it, right? So there's I'm following this step. So it's in the iteration of doing it, of I'm getting ideas of what I want this to kind of feel like, what I want it to kind of, be like. So I don't know if I'm necessarily emulating anything as much as I'm just probably grasping at every movie I've ever seen or every book I've ever read and saying, oh, these are the broad strokes of a fan, in my mind, broad strokes of a fantasy world, right? There's ages, there's history, there's these factions where that you get can fight with. So I don't know. I think it's probably, and just a lot of RPG play, a lot of things played over the years that things that I drew from. But there's no necessarily there's no book I could pull off the shelf and show you and go this other than Rob's.
Yeah, than Rob's. I figured that's what I was trying to allude to. I knew
other than that,
yeah.
Let me Chubby Funster asking questions. This is not being critical.
I wish you would be critical. I mean, the stuff you're doing right now, you be as critical as you want, buddy. I'm sure Paul would appreciate it too.
Yeah, what is the impact of the ages on actual play? Well, that's up to the DM, right? I mean, if you said that the impact of the ages, that something is found from the second age of the Weavers, of when magic was starting to get started, well, that certainly will impact your game in the present if you choose to do something like that. Or, the impact could be if something is discovered that had not been that thread of, is there another age? Is there something that was missing, a hidden age of some kind that we just found? Was there a technology age? Was there a different age or era that now we found something that had never been here before, and now it's saying, oh, this comes from something. Was there a little mini error in between kind of the bigger errors? That's what I would say. I'd say it's just the impact on it is simply whatever the DM wants to do with it for their game. So the impact could be that there is a tool to find something from somewhere else that makes a discovery that could impact the present day. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, Chubby, and I'm not sure when you jumped in, but you might have missed the part where Paul was saying that, these 5 eras cover literally thousands of years, right? Think of them as pre-classical, maybe Bronze Age for us. And then you're in the Roman Imperial era. And then, another 600-700 years later, you're in the early Middle Ages. And so forth. You get the idea, and Renaissance and so forth. So,
yeah. And by the way, these have yet to be defined. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time has passed between each age. And I don't know if I will define it. That could be defined by the DM and says 1,000 years between every age. They could say that. I am very slow to define maybe a lot of things, because once you do that, then I don't want to take the creativity away, because then somebody points to a book and says, then it becomes rules as written, or it becomes something else. You go, well, but no, but it says this. And I'm like, well, maybe I won't put it in there at all. Yeah. If you want to make that up, make that up.
Yeah, I really see this thing very much as an idea engine. It's like I look at it, and it's not like the average pieces that I read, or zines that I read, or adventures that I read, or I guess settings would be the better word, in that it does give me a lot of freedom to kind of co-create and say that I really like this one idea, this thing he wrote here, so I'm going to build on to that. Exactly. Definitely for experienced DMs, definitely with people that are comfortable with setting up I don't want to say a world, but something of a broader setting, and making decisions about races or ancestries and what happened then and there. But for somebody like me, I love that. Just give me a little string and I'll run with it,
Exactly. And if you're a newbie, then get issue 4 and say, I just want to play around. I just want to fart around and create my own little, hex flower of stuff. That's all I did. Is when I started playing around with it, that's how it grew. It grew out of that, of just goofing off and making something for myself. And then I started getting ideas and thought, well, I'll put it out there and see what happens.
And then the PDF I'm looking at, which is for Crit Happens number 10, Land of the Gods, you actually have descriptions, right? Yep. For all of the sites we see on the map there. So for every city, every village.
Step number 19, I believe, I want to say. That could be step 19 or 20. It was 20 or 21, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, which we were kind of chatting about a little bit last night. Now, have you play tested some of this yet?
No, absolutely not.
I didn't think you had, and I'm kind of terrified with my thing too. I thought about
not yet.
Mine has a little one shot, like 8-9 pages, and I thought, well, maybe we'll do that with the Monday night group. Yeah. But it's a little like watching your kid, grow up and do a piano recital, and you're just praying he doesn't screw up. I don't know. I'd probably be on pins and needles, but
my first play test will probably not be public. It will not be televised. Okay.
Chubby, do you have any thoughts on that? Putting your stuff out there and letting people, I mean, in the creative world, you have to let people poke holes in things, right?
Well, he's play testing. I know he's play testing his new stuff right now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely 100% play test your stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But his is a lot crunchier, for lack of a better term, only because
mechanics. You don't have mechanics and rules in here. You're not suggesting because it's system agnostic.
Right. It's system agnostic for me, so I can be a little bit more loose. He is following along with Shadow Dark, which is fine as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's for Pendragon, Chubby.
He's trying to dish that off. So
yeah.
That's a running joke. I've been trying to. From another thing, I think it was Eric Tankars a few weeks ago. Chubby had said something about playing Pendragon and maybe he'd like to run a game. And then I've been wanting to play Pendragon for years. I keep teasing him about doing Pendragon. Don't know if that'll happen or not, but maybe at North Texas. Maybe there'll be a game there.
There could be.
You guys have probably heard us on other channels, but those of you who haven't, Paul's going to be at North Texas in early June. I'm going to be at North Texas in early June. Chubby's going to be at North Texas. Maybe some others. I would love to actually meet some of the folks from our comments section who are going to be there. That'd be a hoot. So Chevy says playtesting is more important when you are forging into new territory as well. Adapting to vampire, I want to make sure that I'm making it work properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I get that. You've been in Shadow Dark mode for quite a while now, and now you're shifting back to another system and another whole different game set. Playtesting is less important when you're on much more familiar ground.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's just what we were talking about. Paul's system here is more kind of a lore setting, a culture setting, a world setting that functions kind of as a plug and play outline. I think, is that fair,
Yep.
Paul?
That's fair.
Whereas
Absolutely.
my thing is more of a my zine is more of a here's some specific ideas, here's some specific rules to add to Shadow Dark, right? So it's a whole different thing than what you're reading with Crit Happens. But I'd love to hear from some of you guys. I recognize the names. Let us know. Go check out Paul. They can get these Crit Happens for what, a couple of bucks?
Yeah, and you know what? The funny thing is, you know why I made it $2? Because each zine is $2, and if you buy the hex bundle, it's $2 cheaper. Because I just give basically you buy 9 and get the 10th free kind of thing, and if you buy 11, you'll get the 12th free.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason I said $2 because ever since I watched Better Off Dead, and the paper boy would run around and chase him around and go, "I want my $2." I want my $2. And so I said, well, $2 is fine. Let's go with $2. I want my $2.
So give the man his $2.
That's right. Don't make me
You will
track
not be
you down.
sorry. Now, are
It's
you
an
going
awful way to price something, isn't it? It's like a random number connected to a movie. Let's price it that way. But I think zines, for the value, I think some zines are 30 pages, some zines are 50 pages. Some zines are 24 pages, but they're in the 20 ranges. I don't think I have any zines that are less than 20 pages. I think 20 is kind of the minimum, you know?
Yeah, and you don't have some of the things like this is not like a knock or something like that where there's a lot of random tables or rumors and things because you haven't fleshed out that level of micro detail. You're staying at the macro level. Fair.
Well, in Colts is nothing but, I mean, Kriyash, the Colts of Kriyash is really nothing but tables.
Right. I just meant number 10.
Yeah. So it depends. Like I may do a little bit on lore, like here's some basic things you need to know. And then I may go ahead and flood it with tables if you want to use the table. So, every zine, you never know. Like when I'm creating a zine, I go, I have no idea until I'm doing it. What's this going to look like? I have an idea, and then I just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, you're still very early in the process, and I'm even less into it than you are time-wise. But I think in the early stages, it's more about building a community and an audience who are interested in what you have to say and what you bring to what value you bring to their game. And if they like where you're heading, and if they like what you do, the rest of it will come. Including the money and all that. But we have a lot of lessons to learn. And Chubby, I'm picking on you because you're here. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate the appearance. I think he's been writing for 10, 15 years and probably learned all kinds of lessons those first 3, 4, 5 years, the hard way, like we all do in life. But that's the way you get better at writing or making games or creating. And there's so many multiple skills you have to have here with maps and managing artwork and layout. And, it is kind of a unique creative endeavor. Where does it go from here, Paul? I know you're going to Dragons of Kriyash next.
Yeah.
How far do you envision this? Do you have some distant goals beyond that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I have a whole, if in my videos, if you look at, that I made my original map, right? So I have this. In fact, I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it in here. Let me see. I don't think I want to show it yet. As you can see, by the way, when you get, just as a plug here, when you buy the bundle or the Lands of the Gods, you're going to get these maps. These are made for 11 by 17. So you're going to get one like that. You can print these off at your local place and say, hey, I want 11 by 17. And this is a little bit dirtied up. If you want to dirty your map, if you want something with hexes on it, you could do that. If you want more of the, map-ish parchment look, you could do that. And then, of course, you have the parchment with the tinier little things on there. And I think let me see if I have them here. I think like I said, I think they came out quite well. I mean, they're good size. You can always shrink them down and give them to your players, but this is something great to just drop on to drop on a table. And like I said, I may make another one with nothing but just the other stuff. Say, hey, I don't want all that other stuff. I just want, a river, and I want, the other things. And I may just put the locales there and say, there you go. You want to play without all the other stuff? Go ahead. I'll make that and put that in there as well.
So somebody could actually take this. What was it? What's the total page count on number 10?
In number 10, the page count is going to be 30. Yeah, 30, 31.
They have a decent color printer. They could probably print this at home, or they could run over to FedEx or someplace, or do it that way.
Yeah. So there's a lot to answer your question, though. There's a lot left that if I want to, and I don't know, when I'm done with this section, with the southeast portion of this, who knows? Maybe I take a break and do 2 or 3 zines on something completely different, just to knock my brain out of, focus for a little while until I get creative juices going, or who knows? Or I may just stay with it and just keep plugging away and say, all right, the next hex, and I may put that at a poll on my YouTube channel. Which section would you like? Which region of the map would you like me to do? Would you like me to do, let's say the deserts of Helos, or would you like me to do the hills of Lunera, or would you like me to do the Sea of Conundrum? Things like that. So I may say, well, which area do you want me to work on? I'll tell you a little bit about it, what I think I know about it, and then say that's kind of the next area we'd like to work on. So we'll see.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world, of course, because as I said at the very beginning, Paul and I connected a year and a half ago or so, and he's been very supportive of me getting back into the hobby and starting to play and so forth. And I think he and I stumbled across Tim and Joe and Vance and Kim, those guys at a certain point. We were in the comments section like y'all are, sniping and having fun, and they sucked him into the game. And then that's kind of how I got to meet the group. But Paul's a great guy, and he's been very supportive, and really, I hope he does really well with this. And I'll be really interested to see how it develops with each issue and it getting better and better. And Paul, do you have, last question, because I know we wanted to try to keep this around an hour. I appreciate your time. Do you have, what's your feedback process? I know I sent mine out to you guys, and somebody ought to kind of pick it apart and look at it. Have you done that, or do you release them, or does your wife look at it and go, what are you
I don't, because everybody has an opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody has an opinion, and the only opinion that's going to matter is mine. Am I happy with it? Because I got 10 people can get in your ear and talk you out of your original vision of what you saw. And even if it's whatever's wrong, right? Whatever somebody says wrong about your stuff, listen, I'm putting it out there as I see it, right? I'm not trying to necessarily meet the masses of what everybody wants. It's terrible, business. But I am trying to put something out that I think's authentic to me.
It's gonna be fun for you. Yeah.
What's that?
It's going to be fun for you. Yeah. I mean,
it's going to be fun for me. So when I'm doing it, I don't put it out there, not because people like yourself or Tim or Joe or anything. Well, Joe doesn't read zines, so he doesn't read anything. But I appreciate.
But Joe, he knows all about economics,
huh?
He knows all about economics.
But even in that regard, Joe is a little bit like me in the sense of the creative process, that he shrinks his universe down into what it is I see.
Right.
It's a singular vision of what I want. And he doesn't let a lot of other people come in and mess with it.
Yeah.
He'll get advice later from other people, maybe, or something. But I think I share the same sentiment in regards to, I want to, because it's not mechanics, and because it's not based on it's not based on an IP. It's not based on being true to other things. It's a very fluid type of setting that can be used anywhere. That's why it's system agnostic. And I think something like that, you can afford to do that because you're not competing or butting up heads with something else to be judged by necessarily. You could say, well, it needs, hey, I'll just say, I'll plug Rob's book again. This is the constraint for now. This is the 33 steps I'm going through is the constraint. And I think in the creation process, you do have to have a constraint. You have to have some sort of guide, guardrails to keep you in the creation process. I think guardrails are a good thing, not a bad thing, because I think it narrows in your focus of what you're trying to create. And I'm doing it, although loosely, right? I find that that's a good thing. The other recommendation I would give, at least in my creation process, and those that want to create as well, I am not afraid to put and do my stuff live, right? I'm willing to put, I'm a practitioner. So for me to create live and to put it out there, and not be afraid of just feedback or whatever. People have said things like, look, I've shown a thing I've done live and noticed that I made 10 typos in a thing, and I'm reading it live on air and it's out already, and I'm showing it. And like, you know what? So what? You get over it, you fix the mistakes, and then you move on. So, and everybody's not like me, by the way. I just don't care. I'm just like, I'm just going to do that.
I get what you're saying. My question wasn't so much, did you ask anyone for like co-collaboration? Oh, what if there was a sixth age, Paul? And it was like this, because I'm the same way. I kind of had a thing in mind for mine. That's not what I was asking for. And maybe I posed my question poorly for you. I wouldn't do that either. I agree with you completely. And everybody has their own style. I meant like probably what you implied, like Tim and in our group kind of looked at things for like, hey, maybe there's a typo here, or this more like technical editing or that kind of thing.
No, and I'll pay an editor, but let me tell you something. Here's where I may differ. I don't want, this is like an odd thing, but I don't know if I want people I know to do work for me. I want to stay friends with my friends, right? I don't want any kind of business relationship.
Are you telling me don't send my second zine to you?
You can, but I understand that process. This is my thing. Like I'm not going to hire, I wouldn't necessarily, because if I hire somebody that I know to paint my house and I don't like the way they painted my house,
you're open up for a can of worms and ruining a friendship.
And I'm going to ruin a friendship, and I am unwilling to ruin a friendship over somebody's opinion or somebody's thing. I'd rather hire somebody I don't know that is going to tell me things from a perspective that they don't care about my whatever. I'd rather just have a neutral party involved in that process, rather than I don't mind ideas from my friends. I don't mind, but when it gets down to, critical looks or something like that, I'm more in favor of a neutral party, because they're going to do it from a perspective that they don't know me.
Yeah, and the thing I said a second ago, I'm not a believer in co-collaboration either too much. I mean, I'm in a creative field, and sometimes it works as long as people don't have real thin skin. But at the end of the day, I just don't believe that there's any statutes to committees out there. And it's usually, my dad was in the KCs. He was in this group and that group. You can be in the Lions Club or the Rotary or whatever. And guess what? It's always the same two guys who wind up doing all the work.
That's right.
A committee with 12 people on it. It's just like in college, right? When you get together to all work on a project, one person writes the paper and everybody else just kind of copies.
That's right. You can't, as they say, you can't lead by committee. You have to have a very singular focus of what you're trying to put out into the world. And it can't be, you can't put it before, a group of people that are going to take you in different directions you did not necessarily intend that you wanted to go, really.
Yeah, Death Angel Shadow saying that the thing, it's hard to take constructive criticism from people they're too close, too personal. Likewise, it can be rough on the person reviewing it, because they may not want to tell you everything for fear of hurting your feelings. Oh, yeah. Feelings and friendship.
Yeah, well,
very true.
Right.
Very
and
true.
I don't want to hurt the reviewer's feelings. I don't want to hurt anybody else's feeling going, then I have to tell them you're wrong. I'll go, because I want to feel the way I feel about it.
But did you know you're a butt face?
That's right.
Just being constructive.
Exactly.
Is that okay? I hope you like my criticism.
I am protecting people from me, really. That's what I'm doing. I'm just protecting you from me. So I don't ask you to do it. It's because I'm protecting you from me and my feedback.
Well, Paul, I really appreciate this. Again, all of you watching, this was our first live stream through my channel. So I really appreciate you guys all jumping on there and commenting. I see a lot of familiar names. I hope we can keep this going and having these kind of discussions. And look forward to doing more of this here very soon. So, Paul, thank you for the time. And I'll be seeing you and talking to you very, very soon. So
See you,
check
everybody.
check him out on his Gumroad link. What's the website link, Paul? Is that a Substack you have? I forgot.
Yeah, the
As opposed to
Substack.
Drive
Yeah,
Through?
it's substack.com// Flint Fireforge.
Flint Fire
Yeah,
Forge.
so it's a newsletter. I don't even announce that very much. It's just kind of a place where I just, it's just another avenue to put some ideas out into the world. Some I make videos on, some I don't. So
Yeah. It's good
yeah.
stuff. Well, whatever you're doing is working, and it's getting better and better, and I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. So much luck, my friend.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you very soon. Have a good night.